Okay, hello there, boys and girls, micro uBITX fans. This is Bob in 1KPR. Here's phase 3. I try to go through these things quickly, but we'll do the best we can. I've had a few days break here, and I wanted to think about the TR switching we're going to do for this unit. So I had this thing called yard work. I did a few days of that, and we're going to have tomatoes this year, hopefully. So we're back at the bench. Anyhow, let me jump right into this. We're going to do a TR so that I could use, basically, I've got a preamp here. I've got it set for 15 dB, receive only, and I added a second TR switch because we don't want to transmit into the preamp, obviously. So let's, I don't know what's going on here with this phone. All right, anyhow, I needed a TR sense voltage, which I have here, red and black, and that I decided rather than to take it off the TR relay, which is the first, I think that's number K3 here, or over here, or the trace that runs up here. You can see those parallel ones. There's the sensing voltage. It's bused to all four of those relays, and you can see that track that just jumpers to all four of them there, where the red wire connects. And I took a common ground for the black and brought that out, and sure enough, that works fine. It's pretty quick switch over. I don't know the milliseconds, but hopefully I won't blow up the preamp. Anyhow, so that's the feed we got out of the radio. Oh, I might as well, while I'm here, show you. I decided to take the jacks off the board, and I brought them out here. So we've got phone, CW, and headphones. Microphone, that is. CW and headphones. And I brought them out to a little panel that's going to be mounted behind the hole in the front panel. That way, with the extension to the Arduino and the display, we could put this whole board back in the chassis out of the way. But to accomplish this TR switching, I'm going to come right out of the port here rather than go into the board here. And I'll show you why here. Hang on just a second. Okay, that was about 25 seconds, but to you, it was one. Here's what we did. And if you want to, if you're interested in any of this, try to do a screen capture. I'm going to do the best I can to give you a view of this thing. Okay? If you could do a screen grab of that, and I'll do it closer so that maybe you could do it in segments. Okay. All right. Let's go through this kind of quickly here. Here's the receiver, and we're going to come straight into a T-tuner right off the B and C output port on the uBITX. And maybe get a little more light here. I don't know. Anyhow, we're going to go into the tuner. It's always going to be in line. And then we're going to come down to this relay, which we jumper when the coil's activated with the 12 volt sense voltage I showed you off the motherboard. We jumper in the transmit mode. In the normally closed position, when the relay is relaxed, we come down here into the attenuator and preamp network, and then we're going to coax feed the strip line that detects the tap-off points for the SWR meter, the power meter, and the modulation meter. That's just one of those strip line things that you see in most SWR meters. And then on out to a real antenna port at the back of the chassis. I'm also going to have a switch there, and I'm going into a 50 ohm dummy. And the reason for that is that we get to check everything against the tuner settings and if the preamp thing here is functioning properly, and to calibrate the SWR and power meters. So whatever power is coming out of the rig will pass through here directly to a 50 ohm resistive load, and then we can set up the VSWR and the power, the total power. So that'll all be calibrated. Now, the audio section, of course, I'm coming off the high side of the pot, so the pot's pretty much useless unless you're using headphones and you use the headphone jack, which was where I showed you before on that panel. I'm not using any of that. I'm taking the raw audio off of here. I'm going through my audio filtering circuit so we can make the audio kind of tailored for listening, depending on whether it's an indoor, the inside speaker, or an external speaker. If you're outdoors, you may want to boost up the high end a little for intelligibility, get that DX type of sound. If you got a close signal, you want an armchair, you can adjust it so it sounds like AM quality almost, not quite. Coming out into a level control. I think you've seen all this on the other video. A little 386, which is doing close to 2 watts and 4 ohms. And then an output switch for the internal speaker, an external speaker. And this switch will be center off, which means the phones are always hot. So you can listen here whenever you want and leave the phones plugged in if you like. And then use the speakers at the same time. I think I showed everybody the S meter, how we did it. I'm using a buffer amp, very high impedance input, very, very low output impedance, a couple of ohms, into a diode and about 20 mics of filtering, a 20K pot wired as a rheostat into a 0.5 milliamp meter here. And I showed you that in the last thing. The scale is all calibrated. That actually works perfectly. I've been playing with that quite a bit. It works very nicely. And I think that's the fact that this whole system is AGC lacking, so that's a plus for us. As far as the TR switch and the preamp controls go, we're going to come in out of that port from that enable inhibit relay. We're going to come in. I'm coming into a 5K pot here. I should have marked that. Excuse me. The 5K is very nice for whatever the antenna impedance may be. If you're using an end-fed and you're not tuning, you could be way off of 50 ohm. But anyhow, that works nice without loading anything down. Again, a bypass switch for the preamp itself, and then out. And of course, all this circuitry, if you want to grab that, come on. It will focus at some point, I'm sure. There we go. If you want to grab that. That whole thing there is actually this box. And here's the relay switching this box. And this is the actual circuit that's in the box. Now, if you want to get really crazy, here's how Bob built it. I just laid out the parts so I don't wire it. I have a way of mixing up inputs and outputs, and that sometimes gives you nothing, and sometimes it gives you smoke. So I always do from the schematic, I do a trial run, kind of a pictorial, as the parts are going to be laid out. The pot and the double pole enable inhibit switch for the preamp are on the front panel. Here's the preamp and the TR relay and how they're wired, with the antenna coming into the wiper on the relay and the other wiper out to the uBITX motherboard. The TR voltage, which is that red wire I tapped off underneath the motherboard. Of course, you got to have a common ground for everything. And a jumper here, so when you pull the relay in, the antenna looks in here, goes around the jumper, comes right back to the rig. Bypasses this whole kit and caboodle down here. So if you're crazy enough to want to capture that, there you go. You may want to look at my schematic and kind of redraw your own. But anyhow, that's it. But all right, here's the board. I feel very strongly, as a matter of fact, I'm very positive that we've got to use coaxes everywhere. I got some RG188 and 174 here I'm using. This is antenna feed in here, A for antenna into the relay, and out here where it says X, that's out to the motherboard. All these control lines, which are this thing. Oh, by the way, everything on this drawing with a circle around it, these 4 circles, that indicates that it's coax. There's also one black wire. Let's see if we can see it. It's right here. Come on, baby. There's the black wire. And that goes back in this harness. Let me pan away. All the way down here. And underneath this board is a common ground for the shields of these 4 coaxes, plus this, plus the power for the preamp, and the shields for these in and out coaxes. There's a switch in the pot, RF gain or attenuate and inhibit or invoke the preamp. Now right now it's set up as a preamp. The preamp is on, if you can see that LED. You can see it's trying to glow at the... Let me turn the light off. This is just a terrible production, huh? Anyhow, the preamp's on. The switch is set in the preamp enable mode, and the pot is set. I'm going to go over here. Look at the S meter. I'm turning the pot left. You can see it coming down. That's the gain control. All right. If I go to bypass, I'm going to flip this toggle switch now. Watch. That's unity. You can't hear the radio, but that mark on the scale is unity for the antenna feed. That's 0 dB loss and 0 dB gain. All right. I'll flip this back on. It's hard to work with one hand. All right. Now, here, what happens, Bob, when you key up the mic and the rig transmits? Well, here's that wire that goes to the relay, and it's looking for 12 volts from the motherboard, the red wires I showed you. And I'm going to try and touch this while you're watching the meter here. There we go. Bypass, because I'm transmitting. Back to preamp. I'm off. 12 volts in. 12 volts into the thing. So, I don't know. I apologize. This is like really, really, really terrible. But you get the idea. I think if you study the paperwork here, both that thing and my chicken scratching, you can figure out what the heck Bob's doing here. It's not terribly complicated, and you may come up with a better idea yourself. But again, the important thing is I didn't want to go into this motherboard here and start cutting these lands to interfere with the RF transmit and receive, both directions. What the heck? The guy that designed this, he knows what he's doing. He's got everything pretty well laid out. I'm just going to come off this port and do all my monkey business off of here. Between here and the actual antenna feed that's out on the chassis. Well, why not? Because I've got the SWR meter and the power meter and everything else, and the tuner hanging off of here too. So, if you look at my other vids, you'll see that. Okay. Again, any questions? Post comments. That comment section is open. I know it looks like a mess. It'll be very nice and neat, I promise you, once we get it bolted down in the chassis. I'm going to go now work on the front panel layout and put some nomenclature on there that makes sense, so an operator could sit down and look at the thing and say, oh, I know what this control does. All right, it's Sunday. It's going to rain. I don't have to water anything. I want you guys to stay safe and have a nice weekend. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you. It's Bob N1 KPR, www.bobsamerica.com. Bye-bye.